When I first met Ethan Parker, he was just another face in my literature class at Westbrook High. He sat in the second row, usually quiet, his dark hair always a little messy, his notebooks filled with neat, careful handwriting. I was new to the school that year, having moved from Boston after my divorce. Teaching had always been my escape, my anchor, the one thing that never disappointed me. The school hallways were still foreign to me, the walls lined with faded posters about college dreams and reading challenges. My classroom smelled faintly of chalk and coffee, both things I couldn't get through a day without. When I took attendance that first week and called Ethan Parker, I remember the way he raised his hand, barely looking up, mumbling, here. That was more of a whisper. I thought nothing of it then. As weeks turned into months, I started to notice him more. He wasn't the loud type or the kind who fought for attention, but his essays had a quiet brilliance. While most students summarized Shakespeare in predictable ways, Ethan would dive deeper, questioning motives, rewriting endings, connecting centuries-old texts to modern struggles. There was something raw and honest in the way he wrote. One day, after class, I found him sitting by the window, reading The Great Gatsby, long after the bell had rung. "Don't you have somewhere to be?" Ethan asked, smiling. He looked up, startled, then smiled back shyly. "I like this part," he said. "The one where Gatsby believes he can repeat the past. It's sad, but kind of hopeful, too." That was the moment I realized there was more to him than his quietness. We started talking after class sometimes, about books mostly. He'd asked questions that reminded me why I loved teaching in the first place. We discussed Fitzgerald, Sylvia Plath, even Emily Dickinson. He told me he wanted to be a writer someday, but didn't think he was good enough. "Every writer feels that way," I told him one afternoon, handing back his essay marked with an A. But good writing isn't about confidence, it's about honesty. He smiled in a way that seemed to light up his entire face. "Then maybe I've got a shot." I didn't realize it then, but that conversation would start something that went far beyond the syllabus. It was during winter break that things changed. The school organized a charity reading event, and I volunteered to guide a few students, including Ethan. We met in the library after hours to prepare. The place was quiet, the snow falling outside making the windows glow faintly under the yellow light. Ethan was practicing a passage from To Kill a Mockingbird. His voice was steady, but I could tell he was nervous. "You're doing great," I encouraged. He sighed. "I keep thinking I sound fake." "You don't," I said softly. "You sound real. That's what makes literature come alive. Real emotion." He looked at me for a moment, his eyes thoughtful. "You really love this, don't you? Teaching, I mean." I nodded. "It's the only thing that's ever made sense." We stood in that quiet library for a while. The air between us wasn't awkward. It was just different, like the silence of two people who understood each other in ways that words couldn't express. From that night on, Ethan began to change. His confidence grew, he spoke more in class, volunteered to lead discussions, and even started a small writing club with his friends. Watching him evolve was like seeing a story unfold in real time. He would sometimes drop by my office after school to show me his latest drafts. I'd sit behind my desk, reading his words carefully, marking small notes in the margins. He'd watch me nervously, biting his lip as if waiting for a verdict. "These are good," I'd tell him, "but you can go deeper. Don't just describe what happens, show what it feels like." He took that advice seriously, and as he wrote more, I started to realize something. In teaching him how to write, I was rediscovering my own passion for words. One spring afternoon, Ethan brought me a short story he'd written for a statewide competition. It was about a young boy who learns from his teacher that the world is larger than the town he grew up in. When I finished reading, I looked up and said, "This feels personal." He nodded. "It is." I smiled, touched. "Then you've already won." He didn't win the competition that year, but what he gained was much more valuable: belief in himself. As the school year came to an end, I started packing up my things, preparing for summer. I was offered a guest lecture position at a university, something I dreamed of for years. Ethan found out about it through the grapevine and came to see me after class. "So you're leaving?" he asked quietly. "Just for the summer," I said, "but I'll be back in the fall." He nodded, but there was something in his eyes that told me he wasn't ready to say goodbye. "Thank you," he said after a pause, "for everything. You did the work. I just helped you see what was already there." He gave me a small, grateful smile before walking away. Summer passed quickly. My university lectures were fulfilling, but I found myself thinking about my students, especially Ethan. When I returned to Westbrook in September, the first thing I noticed was a note on my desk. It was written in that same neat handwriting. "Dear M. Sanders, you once said that good writing comes from honesty. So here's mine. You taught me literature, but you also taught me how to see the world differently. I'm studying creative writing now, and it's because of you. Thank you for believing in me. EP." I sat there for a long while, staring at the note, feeling an unexpected warmth rise in my chest. That was the moment I realized that teaching isn't just about books or essays. It's about leaving a mark on someone's heart. Years later, when I was invited to a local literary festival as a speaker, I was surprised to find Ethan listed as one of the new authors, presenting his debut novel. The program said, asterisk, Ethan Parker, author of The Quiet Season. When I saw him backstage, we both froze for a moment before smiling. He looked older, more confident, but his eyes were still the same, bright with curiosity. "I can't believe this," I said, hugging him. "You did it." "I had a good teacher," he said with a grin. That night, I sat in the audience as he read a passage from his book, a story about a student who finds his voice through the lessons of a patient, kind mentor. It wasn't just fiction. It was our story told through another lens. When the crowd applauded, I felt tears in my eyes. Ethan caught my gaze from the stage and smiled. In that moment, I knew that our connection had grown far beyond teacher and student. It had become something that words couldn't fully capture. Not romantic, not fleeting, but something deeply human. Respect, gratitude, and shared growth. After his reading, we sat outside under the string lights of the courtyard cafe. The air was cool, carrying the faint scent of coffee and evening rain. "You taught me literature," Ethan said, "but what I really learned was how to feel, how to understand people." I smiled, "And what did I teach you?" He thought for a moment. That stories never really end. They just change forms. We laughed softly, and I knew he was right. Now, whenever I walk into a new classroom, I think of that boy in the second row, the one who doubted himself but found his voice through words. I keep his letter in my desk drawer, a quiet reminder that sometimes teaching gives you more than you ever expected.